I'm Dr. Liz Stafford, and this is Primary Music in Conversation. Welcome, everybody, to season 2 of our podcast. A lot of stuff has happened since we last spoke to you, not least that the weather has turned cold and grey, and it's quite rainy here today, actually. So, a different seasonal vibe, perhaps, for season 2. The other exciting thing that's happened is that we have been shortlisted for not one, but 2 prestigious awards. We are nominated, shortlisted in the category Free Resources for the Teach Primary Awards, and we will find out probably just after we go to air with this episode as to how we've done with that. And we've also been nominated as Outstanding Music Education Resource at the Music and Drama Education Awards. We don't find out till the 12th of February about that, so we've got a little bit longer to wait. But obviously, it's fantastic for myself, for the whole team, for all of our guests who've been recognised in this way. We're really, really pleased. And it just goes to show that what we've produced for you is going down well and people are enjoying it. And that is the main thing. As you know, this podcast was born out of the idea of actually talking to real live actual teachers in real live schools working with real live pupils. And we did that all the way through season 1. We spoke to teachers from up and down the country and got a real sense of the different ways that people operate, the different models people have, the different challenges and the successes that they've had as well. And we're going to continue that into season 2, but with one big difference. We're going international in season 2. Now, don't get too excited because we're not going super international. Like, it's not all international. We still have the majority of our guests are still going to be UK based, but we are also going to hear from some international schools, which I think will just add a completely different kind of perspective for our audience. And we know that there are lots of you actually tuning in from outside the UK. So if you are thinking, that you would like to hear more content perhaps from your part of the world, absolutely get in touch with us. We would love to expand further and really kind of go global and talk to as many people in as many different countries as we can who have the responsibility for music in a primary, roughly 5 to 11 years setting. For today's episode, our first episode of season 2, I'm going to be talking to Theresa Phillips from Sneyd Academy, who are based in Stoke-on-Trent. They are a 3-form entry school. Theresa is in charge of the music, but their music is all taught by one person. And I'm really interested to talk to Theresa about this model because it's something that I'm surprised we haven't featured before. Perhaps it's my own bias, perhaps because I used to work for a local authority music service, which then obviously became a music hub, as a curriculum teacher going into schools delivering the curriculum. I was expecting really to find lots more places where that was the case. But most of the people we spoke to for season 1 were either teaching their music in-house, either they themselves were employed as the music specialist as well as the music lead, or they were having like bits of it delivered by external practitioners who may or may not have had connections with the hub. But for this school, Sneyd Academy, they have a very long-standing relationship with their local music hub, represented by the music hub partner City Music Service based in Stoke-on-Trent. So I'm really interested to hear from them as to how that works, particularly when you are a music lead and you have kind of devolved the whole almost responsibility, or at least the teaching responsibility, to effectively a representative of another organisation. How does that go? Is it a positive thing? Is it a negative thing? Are there things that you have to be aware of? Because I'm sure there will be lots of people in that position where they're thinking about buying in maybe support from their hub, or you're already doing it and perhaps it's working really well for you and you just want some other ideas about how you could expand that, or maybe it's working not so well for you and you want some ideas about, okay, what, I'm getting those issues as well. What is the sort of things that I might be able to do to make this relationship work better for me? And I should say, I haven't spoken to Theresa yet. I'm recording this before I get the chance to chat to her, so I do not know how that relationship is going. I'm sure it's going really well. I'm really excited to hear about it, and just generally to find out what other stuff is happening in her school. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of season 2 of Primary Music in Conversation. Hi, Theresa. Welcome to Primary Music in Conversation. It'd be lovely if you could just introduce yourself to us so that our listeners know who you are and where you're from.
Hi Liz, it's thank you for having me on the podcast today. My name is Theresa Phillips, as you've said. I'm from Sneyd Academy in Stoke-on-Trent, which is a primary school, quite a large school, three form entry, and we're based right in the city centre. I'm the music lead there, and I'm a year six class teacher and a phase lead as well.
Fantastic. And how long have you been at that school?
This is my third year in that school. Previously to that, I worked at Burnwood Community School, also in a city school, quite big as well, and I was there for 19 years.
Oh, wow. So this has been a bit of a change for you then.
It certainly has, yeah.
So one of the reasons that I was interested in talking to you was because of the model that you've got for music in your school. So you are the music subject lead, but you're not teaching the music, are you? And neither are your class teachers.
That's right. So we are lucky enough to have somebody come from City Music Service, which is our music hub, and that's Mr. Anderson. He comes into our school for 3 days a week, not full days, but one of those is a full day. And so he teaches year one to year six curriculum, and he also delivers our choirs, Key Stage 1, Songbirds, and Key Stage 2, City Voice Choir, as well as dipping his toe into early years as well.
Fantastic, multi-talented. And how long has
Mm.
that been the case? I mean, I know you've only been at school for 3 years, but has it preceded you, that arrangement?
It certainly has, yes. Mr. Anderson has been at Sneyd for many years, so I'm told. And the music lead has had just the job of overseeing that delivery, really. So I'm in a very lucky position, I feel, having him to work alongside me. But I'm a music specialist as well, and so previously I have been the one delivering the music lessons. So it's really lovely to bring our experience together.
Fantastic. I suppose that's in a way, it's perhaps what you wouldn't expect from that kind of arrangement, in that actually it's given you the longevity. Because often people think when they kind of outsource their music that gets stripped away and it'll be someone different every time, and you've got to constantly be like learning who the students are and explaining to that teacher how things work. But you've actually had that really long lasting relationship, which has meant that he's had obviously a longer impact on the school than you have. So that must have been great when you were coming in and you were given the music lead role, to have somebody who'd been there for a long time, who was kind of established and you could bounce off, I suppose.
Absolutely. Lee Anderson, he loves working in our school, and I know he definitely agree. And he's been there for such a long time, and he's overseen lots of other different things that I've never been part of, like staff choir and things like that. He's got a really good rapport with staff and children, and you can tell he really loves coming in. So yeah, a lot has gone on before me. So when I arrived, it was really good actually starting a new school, and also a new role as phase lead. It was really good to be able to rely on Lee to keep things moving forward with music, so that I could um, concentrate on other aspects of my job, until I could find my feet. And then we've been able to move things on a little bit together. So it's been really great so far.
So I'm interested in that kind of working relationship that you have then. So, because again, another thing that perhaps people worry about is like, if you're the music subject lead, but somebody else is actually teaching all the music, like how do you retain the understanding of the curriculum and the control and the kind of knowing all the assessment stuff's being done? So what does that look like for you? How do you kind of keep that oversight, and how do you work with him in that way?
Well, we've got a really good working relationship, and we sometimes do sit down together and say, come on, let's have a dedicated session where we can chat about things. But it tends to happen ad hoc anyway. And we have lots of little conversations where we're just kind of checking in on things together. We do some things a little bit together. So I will always make sure that I am in our singing together, which is like our hymn practice. And then he leads that, and I support him. So that's lovely to be able to do that. And then sometimes I might support with one of the after school clubs, one of the choirs. And so we just kind of we see each other a lot. So we're constantly kind of feeding in to what each other's doing and suggesting new ideas and new songs and things like that. So it works really well. And plus, I get to see him teach when I need to. I can pop out of class. We have in our school we have staggered lunch times and staggered break times. So my class's break time and lunchtime doesn't always line up with Key Stage 1 or Year 3 and 4. So it's quite easy for me to get out and about and just get snapshots of him teaching. I've got a great teaching assistant as well who works with me, and she will cover my class for just 5-10 minutes here and there. And I actually think that's really useful to be able to just have the odd 5 or 10 minutes. And that's certainly the culture in our school, which is really great because everybody's happy for anybody just to pop their head in for 5 minutes. And I think that's a good culture to have in school, because it just means you just always got an idea of what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree. I mean, there's a fine line, isn't there, between like feeling that people are constantly looking over your shoulder and
Mm,
feeling that, there's a supportive relationship where people can pop in and have a look and you don't have to do an enormous amount of preparation and
yeah,
produce, an Ofsted style lesson because that's I tend to find that that's less helpful for monitoring anyway. When you're watching someone giving the absolutely the most whizzy lesson they could possibly think of, you
yeah,
don't actually learn enough and they don't develop as well as they would do if you just popped in for 5 minutes and saw something, ordinary for want of a better word. So it's nice that
absolutely.
you've got that
Mm,
that opportunity. And I guess the staggered lunches and break times must be ideal for that because a lot of schools won't have that, and therefore you've got to worry about release time and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff to be able to do it.
yeah, it's really good. Plus, our staff tend to stay in with Lee when he teaches, so it's often a teacher, sometimes a teaching assistant. And our staff are actively encouraged to be part of that lesson, to support children maybe with additional needs, to help to model, to help to check, perhaps if it's whole class ensemble teaching, just to go around and kind of check fingering positions, things like that. And so that's really useful, especially from an assessment perspective as well, um, because they can be constantly making notes on which children are perhaps working at a greater depth, which children need more support. And we do have in our school as well what we call feedback books. So they're kind of like a classroom Bible, if you like, a diary that sits on the teacher's desk and anyone can write in that. And staff are trained to jot in that all the time so that when the class teacher looks back over the term, they can see which children have gaps in their learning. And that's across every subject, including music, which is really positive, I think, because I think it's tricky doing assessment in music. And so
Mm.
I love the fact that in our school, music is treated with equal importance with other subjects, really, in that way.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And I guess one of the things that we worry about when we have kind of specialist provision is the kind of de-skilling of other teachers. But if they're in there, and they're actually actively taking part in the lessons, then if they go and leave your school, go somewhere else where they have to teach their own music, they're not going to have a huge gap where they, oh, I haven't looked at it for 5, 10, 15 years and now suddenly I've got to learn to teach it again. So
Mm.
sounds like a really strong model from lots of different perspectives.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I think they get a good flavour as well of. It's a really good scheme of work. I think that Lee has kind of honed over the years. It's really good in terms of progression of skills and variety of genres and that kind of thing. So absolutely, I think that teachers, class teachers can see what a good music curriculum looks like.
I was going to ask you about the curriculum actually. So is it something he's completely bespoke written himself, or is it based on a scheme or?
No, no scheme. And for a general flavour, we he does. He tends to kind of go for the glockenspiel into recorders, into ukulele, so that they have
Mhm.
had um, experience of different instruments through the years, rather than sticking with one. Um, and also with notation, he tends to bring it in quite early in terms of note duration, and also staff notation as well, so that they are constantly building on that. So by the time they get to the end of Key Stage 2, I do think they've got a really good grasp of all the important bits, really.
Mm. I like that idea of, having the different instruments, but not too many different instruments. So, because we know Ofsted, when they were interested in music, which they kind of seem less interested in it now with the deep dives going away, but when certainly when all that came out, they talked a lot, and with their subject research review and their research report, they talked about the importance of not like trying to do too many things. And so I think that's really nice that you've got like effectively a block of three things, which still allows you to do different stuff. So they all use different motions, don't they? You've got obviously hitting for your
Mm.
glockenspiel. You've got a kind of breath-based instrument with the recorder, and then you've got strumming with the ukulele. So like if a child has a particular issue with a particular kind of physical aspect of playing an instrument, it won't be too long before they're going to do something completely different that is going to I suppose, play to their strengths more, perhaps. But in the same way, you've still got that longevity, and they are actually developing those skills, aren't they, over each instrument? They're not just chopping and changing, which sounds like it works really well. Do you have children? Do they know what's coming up next? Like, do you have children saying, "Oh, I know I'm going to learn the ukulele when I get to year five"? Or do you have that kind of thing, or does it all come as a surprise to them?
Well, what Lee tends to do is he tends to bring in at the end of year 4 as a precursor to year 5. He'll start them on a little bit on recorder, so that and as a precursor, and say, this is what we're doing in year 5. We work towards the recorder festival, which is typically at the Victoria Hall, not this time, but usually, and that they know that that's coming up. And then at the end of year 5, again, they have a bit of flavour of ukulele ready to go into year 6. And we do mix in other ways. This year, my big focus is on inclusion, just like everybody else probably in the country. So something that we and Lee have talked about is for those children who perhaps find recorder difficult in year 5, that actually it's okay to have a small group of children who might actually play the glockenspiel because they've done that in year 4. They're a little bit more secure, they're happier, and they can actually, a lot of recorder songs can lend themselves, can't they, and be transferred straight away onto glockenspiel quite easily. And the same for ukulele in year 6. They should then be okay with playing a melody while other children are strumming. And actually, that's a really nice sense of class performance, isn't it? If you've got some children strumming and singing, and then some children playing a melody, I think there's a real beauty in that to have different things going on anyway.
Yeah, it's a more realistic representation of what real music's like. I think one of the things about doing whole class instrumental is when it's just one instrument, we don't really do that in the real world. Like, you don't generally go and hear 30 people all playing the same tune on the recorder at the same time, do you, in
Yeah.
any other context? So
Mm.
it's nice that you've got that mixture, more of a kind of ensemble feel to it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I also think that maybe it's with my background of teaching in schools that are perhaps a little bit more in an urban, in a city place, thinking about cohort and things. But in my experience, some children are more likely to perhaps have a guitar or a keyboard knocking around at home than they are perhaps a euphonium, for example. So it's perhaps a little bit more realistic, I suppose, for them to learn an instrument like a recorder or a ukulele, because these are things that parents can access for Christmas presents, or that an uncle's got, or an older brother. That if they've done some ukulele in year 6, they might in the summer holidays pick up their big brother's guitar. And I like to think that it's about sowing those seeds, really. And I completely applaud whole class teaching of a violin or a euphonium. I think that's fabulous. And I just think that depending on the demographic, there might be some things that are more suited to some schools than others, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important that everybody does what works for their school community. Um, and yeah, I've seen some great, whole class violin, whole class, not whole class euphonium, admittedly, but like, and like mixed strings, mixed brass. But equally, I've seen loads of really good ukulele stuff, good glockenspiel stuff, African drumming, quite often West African djembe drumming, samba projects. So it's nice that there is that range of different things that schools can kind of choose from to suit their school community and suit their strengths. I wanted to ask you about your extracurricular as well, because you've mentioned little bits about it. You've given us little teasers about what's going on. So you've got some choirs, you've got singing assemblies. What sort of stuff is happening?
And so the children that are involved with songbirds and city voices absolutely love that. We've got such as two really steady groups. In fact, we've got a waiting list for both of those. And I think that that is because of the quality, I think, that is put into the concerts that they go to. Um, they absolutely love going to the Victoria Hall and performing with that. The centenary events were particularly good, I think, this year in Victoria Hall. So as they're very popular, they're very well attended. Um, I have also in this school I set up a little djembe group that was just for half term, and then they performed an assembly. That was fun. We loaned some djembes for that. That was great. And also I did set up like a greater depth recorder group as well in year five, just from January to March, to try and just push some children on, inspire them, and then they performed a solo piece at the Recorder Festival, which was nice because I think it was the first time in a while that happened for our school. And I think
Mm.
that the thing about solo pieces is you can actually be quite clever with them. And you can, with a great backing track, you can make something quite simple sound really good. And give the children that feeling of, we're doing something extra special, but we're going to do it well. And so it's a good kind of win, for them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, and backing tracks technology is so amazing now compared to, when I was first learning to play instruments and you were playing one note and it sounded terrible. But now you can play one note. It may still sound terrible, but it have this amazing backing track around it that makes it feel like a real piece of music.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Definitely fantastic. Just to go back to the choirs, so those are part of they're part of a wider hub initiative, aren't they? The Songbirds and the City Voices. It's not just something that's in your school.
No, that's right. Yes, it is a hub initiative. So I know lots of schools across the city are involved with those. And that's great because it means that the concerts are organised and for us, and then when the children turn up, they're with hundreds of other children. And we've had children before who've kind of said, well, I want to be part of the club, but I don't want to perform at the Victoria Hall. I'm too scared about that. I'm too worried. Um, and we've been able to say, look, you're kind of one in a face of 600 children or whatever it is. And actually, they've then gone, been really nervous, but loved it because once you're in that crowd of singers, you don't, that those nerves go for the children and they just really enjoy that sense of performing. But all that is part of the package. So, of course, it's all done for us. There's some paperwork to do our end, but the transport is sorted out for us as well. So I would encourage anybody to get involved in those sessions, really. And the nice thing is about it as well is that if the children have learned something with their music service teacher, they can then perform that in school if they've got perhaps somebody to accompany them or perhaps a track or something.
Mm.
So they can be used for that as well, which is nice if perhaps at Christmas time or whatever.
And do you think it makes it an easier sell to get children involved in those clubs when they know it's like part of a wider thing and there's a more kind of exciting performance coming up than perhaps just, singing an assembly or doing something for parents?
Yeah, I think so. I think the trip part of it is very exciting, and they get to go after school, a little bit, and then they get to go in the evening. The parents come, so yeah, I think it is a massive part of the appeal, and I think that reputation and popularity speaks for itself, really.
Yeah, I know Songbirds in particular has a great reputation kind of nationally. That's something they've been running for a long, long time at
Yeah,
City Music Service. So I know that one, particularly a lot of people are jealous that they don't have it in their area. So you're lucky to be based there where you can get that. I
yeah.
was just thinking, does the fact that obviously the hub is providing, so many obviously sort of pre-packaged things, does that mean, do you feel like you're personally freed up to do other stuff with music in your school because you've got less kind of administrative stuff to worry about, perhaps?
Um, well, I support with those clubs. I'm lucky enough to have a few teaching assistants who actually man those clubs for me on a weekly basis. And I kind of just dip in and out when they need me. Um, I would love to say that I can then put other clubs on, but I think that just where I'm at personally at the moment with being a phase lead as well, that's a little bit prohibitive to that really. And there's sometimes there is part of me that thinks I miss those days when I was the one delivering music and I didn't have a class responsibility. and I could, you know, run clubs all the time on lots of different days of the week. Sometimes I look back with rose tinted glasses, I think. And it's easy to forget what Christmas is like as a music teacher, because that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have the same thing. That I'm like, oh, I'm so sad that I don't like, and then I'll go and do a few, workshops or something in a school, and I come home and I'm like, I am so tired that I feel like I'm going to die. And I remember why I don't do this full time anymore. So it's definitely, but there's nothing I think that beats like the feeling of just being in a room full of kids who are really, really up for doing something musical and it all going well and everybody being
Yeah,
really, really happy about it. You absolutely can't beat that feeling. But yes, trying to do it all the time, especially when you've got other responsibilities, quite tricky, I think.
yeah. Mm.
So you have other roles as well, don't you, within the hub generally? So you're a lead school, is that correct?
We are, yes, yeah.
Fantastic. And how is that going? And what sort of stuff are you doing so far as a lead school?
So it's quite in its infancy. So I think that's still kind of being shaped by the music partnership, Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire, Telford, Wrekin all together. So I think the role is still being shaped. There has been some mention of possible involvement with other schools, and quite excitingly, possibly helping out with maybe a head teacher briefing. So we've been talking in our steering meeting. One of the things we were talking about last time was about children who are accessing, um, children who are perhaps on pupil premium, who are eligible for a little bit of
Mm.
extra support, accessing free instrumental lessons in a group, or individual, like peripatetic style. And actually, the challenges of some head teachers just almost not perhaps being aware of this opportunity or not taking it up for whatever reason. And so we talked about the challenge of that, and someone mentioned, or maybe we could present at a local head teacher briefing when the next one comes around. So that's hopefully something I'm going to be involved with, which is great. Um, and at the moment, it's kind of just feeling where things are at, really, trying to have conversations with other music leads that I know from other primary schools, trying to kind of feel where things are at and take those issues and concerns and exciting things as well back to the steering group and share those with the other partners and other staff there, really. So I've
Yeah,
enjoyed that so far. It's been good.
as you say, it's in its infancy, as it is obviously all over the country, and everybody's approaching it slightly differently. So I'm sure that will become more apparent as we get through more episodes of this season. But even, towards the end of season one of this podcast, we started talking to people who've just been appointed lead schools, and everyone is doing it so completely differently, which I think
Okay.
is right because you have to do the right thing for your local area. But it'd be really interesting to see, yeah, how everyone approaches this role and how what impact it makes in the different regions and what we can learn from each other, kind of moving forward. So I'm sure, given that you have that long-standing relationship with the hub anyway, that you're going to be really impactful for that. So it'd be really exciting. We might have to come back in season three and find out what you did. Um, I wanted to ask you about your kind of your cohort and in terms of kind of socio-economic stuff and whether that impacts on uptake of things like extracurricular, whether you had to put anything in place, whether how your budget is. I mean, obviously you can't tell me actual figures. I know that, but how are things going in terms of like the funding of music? And do you feel that you're being squeezed, or is it all kind of balancing itself out at the moment?
Well, I think the squeeze is on for everybody, isn't it? So I think there's definitely a general squeeze, but I think that's because as a school, the history of the school and accessing other agencies such as the hub has always been so positive. I can't see any reason for that to change moving going forward. So I feel quite secure in that. I think that for as long as possible, we will continue to have that relationship with them, which is great. And I know that as a school, as a music lead, I'm really lucky that that's in place. And I think that it is so important to try and protect it, actually, because I think having worked in other schools in the past where there isn't an involvement with the hub, it is so easy for music to get squeezed out of the timetable. I mean, if we taught all of the subjects for all of the hours that we're supposed to teach them for, we'd be there till tea time every day, wouldn't we? And it's so easy to put music on Thursday or Friday afternoon. And if you're a class teacher who's not a specialist, it's even easier to think, oh, that's a shame. Got to finish this French off instead, or whatever it is. And there goes another week without music. So I think when it's protected like that, it's so important to keep hold of it, isn't it? And
Mm.
yes, so I think going forwards that will stay. I think that I would love more capacity myself to run more extracurricular things. To be honest, um, how that works, I'm not sure. Give me all the money in the world. I think it's time. I think it's all about time, isn't it? And I think that's everybody's challenge, really,
Mm.
to be able to do all the things we want to do for all the children in front of us is tricky. I think that the fact that we do have a fairly high percentage of children who are pupil premium does mean that we can access things like those free lessons, which is really good. Um, yeah.
And so, like instrumental lesson wise, have you got that happening in school alongside your kind of extracurricular clubs and things?
Yeah, so those children I talked about, they have piano lessons. One of the first things I did actually when I got to Sneyd Academy is got rid of the old honky tonk keyboard and got myself a piano. Managed to get a sort of second-hand piano actually, which somebody was giving selling for a very small amount, and managed to sweet talk them into giving it to me for school. So that was one of the first things to happen. Every school hall should still have a piano, I think, and so that's nice. The children are learning on a piano properly, and then they're learning keyboard. So that's going on. And at the moment, that's it in terms of peripatetic lessons.
Mhm. And roughly how many children are getting that opportunity at the moment?
So some children are actually, as a result of knowing Mr. Anderson in school, are actually having private tuition with him
Hmm.
that's fed out of. There's probably four, maybe three or four children who do that. And then there's another, I want to say 12 to 15 children who are doing it as part of the program with the People Premium program, which for some reason the name has gone completely out of my head. I can't think what it's called. Mine's gone blank. But yeah, probably about 12 to 15.
And is there the opportunity for non-pupil premium children to kind of buy into that, or is that a kind of ring fence thing that is just for that group?
It is ring fenced. As I say, some children their parents have contacted Lee to have private lessons. Perhaps more private instrumental lessons is something we could look at going forwards. I'm not sure what the uptake would be. We've got a very mixed cohort with um, quite a lot of children who are pupil premium, but then quite a lot of children who aren't and who might access it. And that could be something that we look at putting on the action plan for music perhaps next year.
Mm. But as you say, I mean, everyone's squeezed at the moment, aren't they? So, anything that involves parental contributions right now is, very, very tricky, I think, for everybody everywhere. And it doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon, she says, in possibly the most depressing thing she's ever said on this podcast. But there we are.
It is tricky. I mean, things like, thinking about trips and needing to kind of fulfill that enrichment for children in which they have access to trips. Coach costs are such a prohibitive thing, aren't they? And trying to get as many good value for money trips for children as possible. So parents are already paying higher prices for trips because of that. And so you're right, trying to ask parents to pay more could be a challenge. In my previous school, I did set up a rock band scenario with an external teacher where children did pay, but it was a lot less because they were in a group.
Mhm.
But I do think that those sessions are tricky, aren't they? They're challenging, I think, to get around children playing different instruments and to give them a quality session when parents are paying. It can be tricky, but it can be done.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's one of the trickiest models actually is kind of rock band scenario. And I think people think that sounds really cool and it's going to be really amazing, and they don't understand the complexities of, as you say, working with different children, sometimes different children of different ages, all playing different instruments, which all work differently and which might use different communication systems. And it can, yeah, when it works, it works.
Yeah.
but a lot of the time it's really, really, really tricky to get that model to work, which is perhaps why we don't hear about it so much in primary schools, and we tend to hear about the more, for want of a better word, traditional kind of ensembles, your choirs and your guitar club and your that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I guess a little bit easier when you get into secondary school, particularly if children have already been having some lessons on those instruments and can kind of self-serve in a way during
yeah.
those sessions. But really, really tricky at primary level, I would say.
It's
So,
almost like an add-on, isn't it? Like to private lessons, individual lessons, isn't it? Not
mm.
necessarily some a way in which a child can make a lot of progress. If that's the only thing they do, that's the only time they play guitar or piano, that's not going to give you the progress you want, is it?
No, absolutely. And I mean, there's a whole other conversation to be had about practice and how much is enough and,
Mm,
all that kind of stuff.
mm,
But yes, I think in those I think group tuition can work really, really well. And I've seen it work really, really well on lots of different instruments. I think when it veers into that kind of ensemble sort of situation, that's where it can be a little bit more complicated, I think, and perhaps more
mm.
complicated than people necessarily realize. And I think sometimes, you say to a parent, for example, the parent's like, oh, my child's learning to play the electric guitar. And you're like, are they though?
Yeah.
Because actually, they are learning things in that session. They're having fun. They're learning what it's like to, be in a musical group, and they're developing their confidence and all that stuff. But if you've got 20 minutes, half an hour, and everybody's learning a different instrument, are you learning to play the electric guitar? Arguably, should you be learning to play the electric guitar in primary school? But let's not even go there. Um, so yeah, it can be problematic, I think that. But it sounds like the kind of provision that you've got is really well thought out, and that you've got kind of it's targeted towards the right people. You've got those the piano lessons that are going to be a really good kind of core for children to develop musically, although the piano itself is obviously a very complex instrument, and sometimes I find it funny that that's always the one that people tend to default to,
Mm,
particularly parents like, oh, I want my child to play the piano, and I'm like, that's
mm,
two hands, two clefs, feet. Are you sure you wouldn't like them to play the violin or the flute or something? But actually, it gives you such a good foundation, doesn't it? And then it can help you to spring off to anywhere, any kind of instrument, really,
mm.
especially with the kind of theoretical knowledge that you get from having to work for those two different clefs. And then
Yeah,
you've got obviously all your singing happening, and like you said, your extension group for your recorders and all that. So it seems like it's really, I don't know what I'm trying to say, it's like a really kind of core sort of, I don't know what I'm trying to
yeah,
say. I don't know, but my words escape me. But it's like a quite a kind of quite tight, well thought out model of real kind of fundamentals. You've got your singing in there, you've got your piano in there, you've
yeah.
got your opportunity to play different instruments, but in a very controlled way. And also the fact that if they don't get on with that instrument, they're finding it difficult, they can default back to the one that they know a bit better. It all seems very, very, very well thought out and very yeah, I just keep coming back to this word core. Like it
Yeah.
feels like it's a sort of, and people who are not watching us on YouTube will not be able to see what I'm doing with my hands. But this idea of it's like very tight and very kind of controlled, and it's going to give them a really good foundation for going on to
Absolutely.
secondary school.
Absolutely, it is. I inherited a good, strong core, as you say, and I feel like we've already moved it on. And actually, it doesn't need taking part. It doesn't need ripping up and starting again. It's there, and I'm pleased with what it is. So I'm kind of just nudging it forwards in little dribs and drabs. Sometimes wishing again that I was the one delivering it, but that's not the season of life I'm in at the moment. My job at the moment is just to keep nudging it forwards, and like I say, my big nudge this year is inclusion, as well as a few other things. And it's nice. It's nice to have that in place, and I get to tweak it. It hasn't always been like that. In my previous school, for a time I was class teacher and trying to encourage some classroom assistants actually who bizarrely had more confidence than the class teachers because they got a little bit of music experience or just the passion for it really. And so I was coaching some teaching assistants to deliver music in PPA, and that was good. But trying to convince some of the class teachers to deliver their own music was challenging. And so um, being a class teacher in that school and being the music lead was much more challenging, and not having that surety that music was happening for half an hour, every week in every class, plus the singing together. It's a bit more stressful, I think, when you're in that situation. This is
Mm.
stress free in comparison.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, you're starting from such a high level, aren't you, that you just have to worry about making things even better than they already are, as opposed to
Yeah,
fixing things that need fixing.
yeah, that's right. I'm in a privileged position now, but it wasn't that way for a long time. Um, it's definitely easier, and I do sympathise with um anybody who's trying to leave music in a school where they haven't got somebody externally coming in to deliver it. I think that's really tricky.
Absolutely, yeah. It depends on the school and the personalities involved and stuff, but you only
It
need one
does.
or two teachers who don't see the value of music to make everything kind of slowly fall apart.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
A couple of last questions for you. One of them is about kind of transition to secondary school. I don't know how it works in Stoke. So you might have millions of schools that all your kids are going to, or they might be all going up to one or two local schools. Do you have many transition links with your secondary schools, or is that something that is like in development?
Well, I'm part of an academy trust, so it may well be different to the experience of other schools in the city. And so in our academy trust, we have got 4 primary schools and 2 high schools. And so a lot of our children go up to the local high school. And we have termly subject network meetings, and all music leads from the 6 schools are invited to those. And so they have been happening for a couple of years now. And so we're starting to get a really good rapport, I think, amongst us, the staff who are involved in that, between the primary and the high school. Um, and I know actually that one of 2 of the other schools in that academy trust, the primary school music specialist is doing so well, and she leads it and she delivers it. She's a senior teaching assistant. That the high school have actually asked her to go up and deliver year 7 lessons there. So which is really great, and it's really good to see her like blossom in that way. And so we're developing that partnership. So within
Mm.
that, um, I'm able to establish good transition links with the high school teacher where most of our children go. But it can be tricky. I think that music secondary teachers are few, aren't they, as well? And so I know that our local high school have just had to try and reappoint again. So obviously we've got to kind of start a little bit back at ground zero, building that up. But there's that forum there, and I think
Mm.
because it's termly, I think consistency is really important with any kind of networking like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what's coming across really strongly actually is the importance of partnerships, both that partnership with the hub and also the partnership with the Multi Academy Trust. And it sounds like both of those partnerships are working really, really well for, developing and supporting what you're trying to do, which is great, particularly from the map perspective, because sometimes when we hear about mats we hear like horror stories about top down kind of implementation of you must do this scheme and you must teach it in this way, and it sounds like yours is working in a much more kind of collaborative way, in a way that is going to be much better for all the schools involved, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. In fact, one of the high schools, I know they invited the primary schools to bring their children and learn the songs that the musical they were doing at the end of year, and invited them up to go and be involved with that. And we actually didn't get involved with that just because of capacity and the distance and the calendar and things like that. But what a great opportunity, and how lovely that the secondaries are saying to the primaries, come on, come and get involved. I just think that key stage 2 to key stage 3 link is really important, actually.
Mm.
And it can be frustrating when that isn't there.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just from the importance of the music aspect, but also for those children. I think it can't be underestimated how powerful it is to be going up to a big school that you have been inside before, and that
Yeah.
it just takes some of the fear away for you, doesn't it? So it's really important, those kind of initiatives, where they can happen. And as we've just mentioned, time and transport and all those things can get in the way, understandably, but where it is possible, that is, that is absolutely fantastic. It's just the right thing for children, to help them kind of bridge that gap and get rid of some of those anxieties and those nerves maybe. I wanted to ask you, what's on your wish list, or what is it that you're going to develop, in music over the next however long?
Oh wow. Well, it depends if you're asking me from my realistic wish list. Um,
Well, let's go for, pie in the sky stuff, and then the stuff that you think that will actually happen.
well, I think looking back over my career, I think one of the highlights for me was when I had several different clubs in my previous school actually going on. Different staff, got a staff choir, had a staff band. Um, and so there was music going on everywhere all the time. And so I managed to bring that all together and to do a showcase in the summer. And it was just fabulous, in the evening. And we had the recorder groups playing their individual pieces, and then the djembe group played something, the staff choir sang something, the Key Stage 2 choir sang something, and then they did a few massed items that everybody had been learning. And again, it was simple stuff, it was a couple of notes from the recorders in the right place and a couple of strums of the ukulele, that kind of thing. But together it sounded really good. And I think that was really positive and had a big impact on all the parents who came to watch as well. It was in the evening in the school hall, and it was a really great event. And I think that things like that create such a buzz about music. And I think that getting staff on board is another thing as well. So I'm just trying to figure out which Christmas song Key Stage 2 choir could possibly sing at church in December that might appeal to a few closet karaoke singers on the staff. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out who to bully into coming and sing in the staff choir. I had in the summer when the year sixes did their leavers, I managed to rope my son, who's a drummer, to come into school, and myself and Lee Anderson and my son, we did a little rock band, which of course the children loved because that experience of being able to see somebody playing drums, they loved. And so I think about getting adults involved, the whole school community, in doing just raising the profile of music, is something that I'm quite passionate about. So yes, my Sneyd Academy colleagues need to watch out basically because I'm going to be looking for volunteers.
I love the idea of closet karaoke. That sounds like the name of my next podcast, in all honesty. I'm gonna copyright that immediately. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that chat. I'm really glad that things are going so well for you at your school, and I'm sure you'll go from strength to strength. Thank you very much for your time. And thanks for being a guest on Primary Music in Conversation. What a great start to our season two. I had forgotten how much I enjoy talking about primary music. Probably a good thing, I suppose, if I'm going to do another 6 or 7 episodes of this. That was a really fascinating chat. I really like how the kind of power of partnerships really came across in that conversation with Theresa. The idea that the longevity of the partnership that they've got with the hub has just kind of elevated their music to the stage where it almost doesn't need to be worried about. It's just kind of running itself smoothly, and they can just worry about putting the shine and the sparkle on top of it. And the fact that the partnership that they have in their mat as well is actually working for the schools rather than against the schools. Really great to hear as well. And I'm sure that school will go from strength to strength. If you enjoyed listening to that, we are obviously going to be releasing more episodes for season two over the coming weeks. But also, you can go back into history and look at season one, where we have 7 episodes from teachers up and down the UK talking about how they organise music. There is, at this point in time, still time for you to get involved. We have a couple of slots left for season 2 that we haven't filled yet. So if you would like to throw your hat in the ring, please do get in touch with us. You can see in the caption in the below the video on YouTube how to do that, and you can contact us through our socials as well. And if you are on a podcast app, there will be stuff in the podcast notes about how to get in contact with us too. If you would like to chat to us, but you're a bit busy in the run up to Christmas, we're also starting to think about season 3, which will be some point in the spring. So we'll have another change of weather, perhaps a change of wardrobe for me. You never know. I've got the feeling that by the time we get to the end of this season, you're going to be seeing me appearing in a jumper. I can feel it coming. So do get in contact with us, even if you're not ready to jump in for season 2. If you would like to be considered for season 3, we would really, really love to hear from you, particularly. Not that we don't love talking to people in England, but particularly if you are in another part of the UK or another part of the world in general. We'd really like to kind of open it out to get those perspectives from lots of different regions and countries and continents as well. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and please do join us again for episode 2. Primary Music in Conversation is presented by Dr. Liz Stafford, edited by Kay Charlton, and produced by Music Education Solutions.